This was back in 1971, and Lenny had been commissioned to write a piece to open the Kennedy Center, and he had decided that he was going to do. Originally, he decided he was going to do a Requiem Mass in honor of John F. Kennedy for Jacqueline Kennedy, then Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, and then he came up with the idea of he would write not just a Mass, but sort of people's response to a Mass, and he had all these little bits and pieces of music, and he'd set most of the Latin, and he had little English ideas, but they were all on little teeny shards of paper, and he had no kind of organization going on at all, and he had been trying to find someone to work with him on it, and that hadn't been working out, and it was now June, basically, of 1971. And the Mass was going to open the Kennedy Center on September 8th, and nothing existed. And my agent, Shirley, whom, as you've already said, was Lenny's sister, brought Lenny to see Godspell shortly after it opened, and he liked the show very much. And she said, "Listen, I think this kid, strange as it sounds, may be able to help you with this." And so I went and met with him. And basically what I did was to try to come up with an organizing principle for all this material that he had. And he had this song called A Simple Song, which in the final piece is pretty much what he had at that time. I changed a few of the words, but basically that's what existed. And I said, well, maybe there should be this character who sings that song, and then he sort of gets weighed down with responsibility and the trappings of the church and of what everybody expects of him, until he has this big collapse, and then people sort of at the end realize they have to do things for themselves, and that was basically the organizing principle, and we wrote the piece around that, and then I just wound up doing lyrics for a lot of the pieces, a lot of English lyrics for pieces that he had music for, and in some cases ideas for, but hadn't really finished or been able to set. It was done very, very quickly, and frankly, I wish we'd had more time, because while I feel the concept was a good one, it was a bit thrown together. And very recently, because it started to be done again, I realized that I could actually rewrite some of these lyrics that they weren't chiseled into tablature, and so with help and cooperation from Lenny's estate, and particularly from his daughter Jamie, I actually rewrote about half of the lyrics for it, for some of the recent productions.
And it was quite successfully redone at the Hollywood Bowl.
Marin Alsop did it there, yes. And with these new lyrics. But it was an amazing experience to work with him. I mean, I learned an enormous amount, obviously, about both music and about moving through the world from him, and anyone who knows his music and knows mine a little bit, the influences are so obvious that I don't even have to point them out.
Well, granted, you were hugely successful, but were you at all intimidated by his nature, his reputation, the maestro?
He was a man who made it very, whatever his sort of enormous character flaws that have been written about extensively. He was a man who was incredibly generous of spirit, and he would go out of his way to make people feel comfortable with him and not intimidated by them. Unlike many other people that I've dealt with, who are sort of famous and forbidding and make it quite difficult to approach them. He was exactly the opposite, and he broke down those barriers pretty quickly.
Did you call him Lenny?
Yeah, he insisted. Yeah, he asked. He didn't want me to call him Maestro.